Chapter 325. Six Devils Show of Force. Soldiers at the Walls. TL by Babelson. Once they saw the Hell White Tiger and Mahonjin's pincer attack, there wasn't time for the others on the walls to help Golden Crocodile Duo even if they wanted. Daimubai and Juzul King's Hell White Tiger and Mahonjin's aerial attack was perfect, forcing Golden Crocodile Duo to suffer attacks from both directions at once. Despite the numerous Spirit Empire Spirit Masters on the walls of Jelling Pass, at this moment Golden Crocodile Duo felt alone and isolated. That absolutely wasn't a nice feeling, and could even be called painful. The first thing Golden Crocodile didn't expect was the threat Mahonjin posed to him. The second was how the Heavendo Empire side's powers could breach the defenses to mount the wall so soon, and the third was of course the Hell White Tiger's fearsome strength. At this moment, he alone wasn't enough to even deal with the Hell White Tiger, let alone with Phoenix Duo and Mahonjin on top. Mahonjin's attack alone wasn't enough to trouble Golden Crocodile Duo too much, but he didn't need to finish Golden Crocodile Duo. He just needed to block him from escaping into the air, forcing him to defend until he had to fight the Hell White Tiger. In the critical moment, Golden Crocodile Duo revealed the full power that made him the second High Priest of the Spirit Empire behind Chandaliu. All his scales stood upright as he twisted violently, producing a layer of vague golden light with each shake, making Daimubai and Mahonjin unable to completely target him. And at the same time, his enormous body abruptly turned, pulling his alligator tail up to his mouth and biting down on it, turning into a full circle with the most solid scales he had on the outside, and the vulnerable areas inside. Simultaneously, his whole body spun quickly like a pinwheel, and along with his spirit wings flashing, he shot from the top of the walls, charging straight towards Mahonjin, hitting the soft parts and avoiding the hard was the natural way to squish a persimmon. Without a doubt, this was Golden Crocodile Duo's all-out attack, and also the best method in a critical situation. A rank 98 title Duo's full-strength attack was terrifying. If Mahonjin dodged now, then without a doubt, with Golden Crocodile Duo's strength he could immediately open up a good distance, and the other Spirit Empire powers would also get the time to assist. At least Golden Crocodile Duo wouldn't have to face Mahonjin and the Hell White Tiger's pincer attack, making hurting him very difficult. If Mahonjin didn't dodge and met him head-on, Golden Crocodile Duo could still rely on his unreasonable strength to force him away, taking advantage of the gap to escape. Of course, that way he would very likely be caught up to by the Hell White Tiger. He was betting that Mahonjin didn't dare take his full power attack. As long as he retreated an inch, Golden Crocodile Duo would have a chance. Would Mahonjin dodge? He used his actions to prove the power of the Shrek 7 Devils to all on the battlefield. Seeing Golden Crocodile Duo about to hit him, Mahonjin gave a silent curse, and his seen head spit flame, not towards Golden Crocodile Duo, but rather towards himself, surging Phoenix flame surge all over his body, and at the same time, his Phoenix wings closed up, with his head stuck inside, curling up like a ball, going into the crash without hesitation or thoughts of dodging. Boom! The flaming meteor made from a 9-headed fire phoenix was blasted high in the air. In midair, Mahonjin couldn't even maintain his 9-headed phoenix avatar, directly turning back into his human form and even vomiting blood, clearly seriously injured. The flames all over him scattered in all directions, his complexion pale as paper, but his injuries were worth it. At the same time Mahonjin had displayed his greatest power with one strike. The wind fire will like Golden Crocodile Duo was stored in midair for a second by his attack, and was even covered in scorching flames, dissipating all of his momentum. It was also at this moment that the Hell White Tiger arrived. Bang! A giant claw raked Golden Crocodile Duo. Golden Crocodile Duo's Golden Crocodile avatar had to be described as large, but it paled in comparison to the 30-meter-long Hell White Tiger. Absolutely don't underestimate this tiger claw. It was an attack that Daimubai had charged up for a long time, and using the strength of the erect Goldfly boost. With this one attack, Golden Crocodile was slapped straight off. Half his body was embedded in the wall, daring to harm my little brother. This old man will end you. The Hell White Tiger spit out Daimubai's voice, a giant white ball of light exploding out, bluntly smashing down on Golden Crocodile Duo. Golden Crocodile was now putting his all into defense. The collision with Mahonjin had left him in pain, and he could only suffer Mahonjin's attack. There was no way he could dodge that claw. With one strike, Golden Crocodile Duo was already seeing stars, blood spraying from his mouth. What he could do now was to burst with all his rank 98 spirit power, combining it with his spirit abilities to protect himself. With one white light suddenly exploding on top of the walls of Jelling Pass, a giant jag was blasted into the walls, countless stone chips shooting in all directions. Golden Crocodile Duo's muffled grunt was audible even to the Heaven Doami that was still far from Jelling Pass. However, Daimubai only had time for one attack, without even the time to check on Golden Crocodile Duo's condition, before he sharply spun, facing the attacks of the other Spirit Empire powers. In order to attack Golden Crocodile Duo twice, the Hell White Tiger would have to take at least 10 attacks, and at least half of those were title Duo attacks. The instant the Hell White Tiger formed, Ning Rongrong's boost towards it failed, because her 9-treasure glazed Tile Pagoda couldn't boost God level powers, and the erect Goldfly's ability could only last one strike. Because of this, after Daimubai launched one attack, it would be a bit difficult to bear all those strikes. The Hell White Tiger's form was already starting to grow vague. The 30-meter shape could admittedly contain enormous energy, but it also had an extremely clear goal. Poor Golden Crocodile Duo, he had now also been blasted straight back to his human form. Even though Mahonjin was miserably hurt, he was still relatively fine, whereas this second priest might be worse off than he had ever been in his life. His whole body was embedded in the rock of the wall, and those shattered scales of his Golden Crocodile avatar were equivalent to his own flesh, every part of him torn and mangled, vomiting big mouthfuls of blood. His complexion was unsightly to the extreme. He could only gasp for breath. In fact, the Hell White Tiger's God level strike had been completely focused on him. How could he get off easy? Golden Crocodile Duo was in his hundreds, and even though an attack like this wasn't enough to directly put him out of the fight, he'd still lost at least 70% of his unreasonable strength. Recovering would be even more difficult than when BB Dong was injured. After all, age spared no man. He had absolutely not expected that, as the battlefield commander, he'd be this seriously injured in one exchange, and it only cost the enemy the injuries of one title Duo. His depression was definitely more painful than his injuries, which was also one of the reasons Golden Crocodile Duo madly vomited blood. Without a doubt, the Shrek 6 Devils plan of beheading the enemy was extremely successful. What made Golden Crocodile Duo's eyes even wider was that the fatty he'd clearly seriously injured so bad he turned back into human form had actually resumed his spirit avatar in the air. And by the looks of it, his strength wasn't affected by his injuries. He was actually diving from the sky again. How was it possible? Nothing was impossible. Don't forget that the Shrek 7 Devils had 2 supports. Besides the world's #1 support Spirit Master, they also had the world's #1 food type Spirit Master. Even though the Crystal Caterpillar Sausage was hard to produce, each of the Shrek 6 Devils carried one. Mahonjin was seriously injured, but this Crystal Caterpillar Sausage really was potent, made while Oscar had eaten the erect Goldfly. It instantly healed the injuries, and Mahonjin hadn't spent too much spirit power either. With his injuries restored, he naturally suffered no major hindrance. However, the Shrek 6 Devils didn't scale the walls entirely smoothly. After all, the Spirit Empire had too many formidable Spirit Masters. Even though Oscar had Ning Rongrong's support, he didn't have as powerful abilities as the Hell White Tiger and was directly hit below the walls, suffering some injuries. On Xiaowi's side, of her 9 clones, 4 were destroyed, while the other 5 successfully stepped onto the walls, turning into 5 red shadows, each finding a Spirit Duo. They might not be able to set the result in one blow against Title Duo, but against lower level Spirit Duo, Xiaowi's Spirit Avatar displayed terrifying strength. 5 red lights erupted simultaneously, directly shooting into the sky, instantly completing 5 burst kill 8 stage drops. In front of the rank 96 Xiaowu, her burst kill 8 stage drop would have even Tang San worry about losing a layer of skin. As for Xiaowu's main body, she reached the top of the walls completely without incident. Definitely don't forget about Xiaowu's 2 great defensive abilities, teleportation and invincible golden body. Just one invincible golden body made her the second to charge onto the walls after the Hell White Tiger, with a series of dazzling teleportations. 4 Spirit Duo over rank 80 had their necks twisted by Xiaowu. It was still soft skill, but Xiaowu's soft skill was now completely different. She was surrounded by an illusory light, and when she attacked only this shadow that was similar to her main body moved, but could easily accomplish the soft skill. Title Duo level soft skill. Xiaowu's display immediately caught the attention of the Spirit Empire powers. The 3rd priest blurred, already charging towards her. Naturally they couldn't let Xiaowu use her full strength. A rank 95 power in a group of Spirit Duo was no different from a tiger in a flock of sheep. A faint smile appeared on Xiaowu's face. One teleportation, a quick retreat, and at the same time, a red speck of light flew from her hand, landing right behind those Spirit Empire high-level Spirit Masters. Look out! One Spirit Empire title dueler who once saw something similar practically roared. The terrifying force that Red Spec carried really was too shocking. That time, several dozen Spirit Sage and higher powers had been instantly annihilated. Indeed, what flew from Xiao Wu's hand was the second of the 3 Water Fury Tang Lotuses produced by divine craftsman Lu Gao. But Xiao Wu's actions didn't end here. She threw out the Water Fury Tang Lotus with one hand, while her other wrist turned, an elaborate cylinder appearing in her grasp. The next moment, dazzling light and incredibly dazzling colors appeared out of nowhere above Jelling Pass. Whether the defending Spirit Empire troops inside or the assaulting Heaven Dome on the outside, also a strange scene. A fan-shaped light appeared on top of Jelling Pass, as beautiful as a peacock's tail. Only one person didn't feel it was beautiful. That was the third priest charging towards Xiao Wu. The magnificent peacock tail spreading out happened to envelop him. After Xiao Wu used the Tang Sect's most terrifying mechanical hidden weapon, Water Fury Tang Lotus, she also used the equally terrifying single target attack hidden weapon, Peacock Plume. What the Peacock Plume fired was all sorts of needle-type hidden weapons. Back when they first saw the blueprints, both divine craftsman Titan and Lu Gao were gobsmacked. This was the first time it was revealed on the Dueler continent. The first time its power was unleashed. The unlucky third priest also became its test target. All manner of different sounds erupted simultaneously. Even with the third priest's strength, it was impossible to dodge the Peacock Plume. Even Xiao Wu, who fired it, couldn't help gasping in surprise. Terror made the third priest instantly use his strongest defensive ability. However, nearly all of the Peacock Plume's special needle-type hidden weapons possess the ability to break through protective energy. Bone-piercing needles, thunderflame needles, rending blade needles, devil-subduing needles, armor-breaking needles, overlord needles, dark needles, dragon-snapping needles. All sorts of needle-type hidden weapons were perfectly combined. Pain and explosions constantly appeared on the third priest. It was lucky he'd smoothly already reached rank 96, and at the same time as his defensive spirit abilities dulled the attack power of these needle-type hidden weapons, his durable flesh became his last shield, dissolving these attacks as far as possible. However, poison, explosions, and all sorts of attacks were still made him suffer. His entire body was drenched in blood from the Peacock Plume's attack. And just then, the Water Fury Tang Lotus exploded in the group. What was the strongest mechanical hidden weapon? That was, when you even knew how terrifying it was, you still had no chance to dodge when you met it. The terrifying explosive force brought an ear-piercing shrieking sound. Golden Lotus petals practically instantly stabbing more than 30 Spirit Empire Spirit Dueler. Title Dueler levels had defensive power far surpassing Spirit Sages. But how difficult was it to nurture 30 Spirit Dueler? Before the Water Fury Tang Lotus, their bodies were torn like cloth. Great clouds of blood suddenly blossoming, and at the same time, an illusory red silhouette had appeared behind the third priest, a tender-looking hand already grabbing his waist. It was Xiao Wu. Having endured the Peacock Plume's attack, the third priest no longer had the strength to resist Xiao Wu's attack, let alone when Xiao Wu with Ning Rongrong's support already surpassed him. Right knee on the third priest's lower back, and the next moment, this Lord Priest was thrown away by Xiao Wu. The other Shrek 6 devils basically didn't even need to look in the direction of this corner of the battle. At a similar level to Xiao Wu, her soft skill lock was something not even Tang San before he became god would have a chance of escaping, let alone the third priest who was already heavily wounded from the Peacock Plume. He could only have one ending, and would only have one. Tang Hao and the others were now definitely shocked. Of the Spirit Empire's strongest 6 grand priests, the Shrek 7 devils had directly gotten rid of 2. This wasn't just a perfect start, at the same time it influenced the entire battle. Right now, with the Hell White Tiger doggedly meeting the attacks of 2 priests, and Ma Hongzhen falling from the sky to tangle with one, only one of the 6 great priests remained. This also didn't include Xiao Wu's remaining 5 clones, already tangling with one non-priest title below. The Shrek 6 devils were already doing as well as they could. A giant Clear Sky Hammer found the last priest, the Clear Sky Hammer of Clear Sky Schoolmaster Tang Xiao. With a single swing, the priest was forced back in swift retreat. When Tang Xiao moved, how could Clear Sky Dueler Tang Hao stand aside? The Great Sumero Hammer swung in a circle, stubbornly encircling 3 enemy title Dueler. Sword Dueler Chen Xin and Bone Dueler Gu Rong joined hands, also taking up 4 title Dueler. Of course, this still wasn't all the strength of the Heaven Do Empire. Oscar and the Golden Iron Triangle as the Golden Sacred Dragon were last to land. Their goal were House rank 80-something Spirit Dueler level powers. In an instant, the battle spread like wildfire. The Heaven Do Empire side that should have been at a disadvantage, not only weren't suppressed, but instead held an advantage. And at this moment, the swarming Heaven Do army had reached the moat. Even though Shui Bang didn't clearly see the situation on the top of the walls, but that the powers on their side had already all climbed to the top of the walls was enough to infer that his side wasn't losing. At least there wouldn't be a problem for a while. Raising the Imperial Sword, Shui Bang shouted, "Soldiers of all armies, full assault." In close to a month of peace, the Heaven Do army stationed in the camp hadn't been idle. With the Tang Sect Speedhole disciples' frequent scouting, they had grasped the majority of the changes to Jelling Pass. Of course, they knew the circumstances of the moat. Consequently, as the great army just reached the moat, 4 cavalry legions immediately milled forward. On either side of each horseman's saddle hung a sandbag filled with soil. 1 sandbag weighed 30 jin, 2 was 60 jin. As the Spirit Empire's most important stronghold, the moat in front of Jelling Pass was of course very deep. 60 jin of sandbags thrown in naturally didn't count for anything. But, as 4 cavalry legions, a full 40,000 men, took turns to throw sandbags into the moat, the effect appeared immediately. Even though it couldn't pack the entire moat full, filling a few wide passages wasn't a problem. Commanded by Marshal Ji Long signal flags, the Heaven Do army split neatly. After the cavalry completed their task, they immediately retreated to both sides, and the heavy infantry began to cross the river. Right now the majority of the people on top of the Jelling Pass walls were the Spirit Empire's Spirit Master legions. Repelling those enemy powers notwithstanding, a pass guarded by Spirit Masters was admittedly secure as a vault, but it also had a weakness. Spirit Master attack abilities all had fixed ranges. Even rank 60 and rank 70 Spirit Masters found it very difficult to project their attacks very far. Spirit abilities like Ma Hongzhen's Phoenix Meteor Shower were after all extremely rare, even though Ma Bao's White Tiger Meteor Shower only had a range of 100 meters. Therefore, these Spirit Masters could only helplessly watch the moat being filled it. Right now they were less useful than common archer squads. Sonorous metal noise resounded in the Heaven Do army. The few legions furthest ahead slowly moved aside, leaving only 6 heavy infantry legions like a shield in front. Behind them, special warriors appeared one after another with stern faces and holding long black boxes. They had once created unprecedented glory on this battlefield, using the power of ordinary humans to annihilate practically an entire 10,000-man Spirit Empire Spirit Master Legion. Indeed, they were the extension of Tang San's Tang Sect, the Tang army, the army equipped with the godly Juga crossbow that could make lower-level Spirit Masters die trembling. And together with the Tang army also came the Heaven Do army's one and only Spirit Master Legion, and furthest in front were the Tang Sect 4 Hall disciples. Riding alongside Shui Bang's tall mount, Marshal Ji Long set down the orders, and soldiers next to him raised a yellow signal flag. Seeing this flag, 2 detachments on the front of the Heaven Do Spirit Master Legion moved. These 2 detachments only had 300 men in total, but they were formed entirely from Tang Sect disciples. They were made each from 150 defense hall disciples as well as 150 strength hall disciples. Standing furthest ahead were the 2 hall masters, Titan and Nui Gao. Titan and Nui Gao's eyes were burning with excitement, not for battle, but rather for the Sect Master high in the sky that had finally returned at the critical juncture. Not so long ago, their 4 single attribute clans had left the Clear Sky School like stray dogs. Practically any sect in the Spirit Master world could humiliate them, until the day Tang San appeared, founding the Tang Sect, gathering them together again. Even now, when Titan, Nui Gao and the others recalled their former circumstances, they couldn't help rejoicing. Back then Tang San had moved them with strength, but in fact, they had actually gambled on using Tang San as an opportunity to regather the 4 into one great sect. They had never expected the Tang Sect to one day reach such a position. Ever since the first battle at Jelling Pass, the Tang Sect had established themselves as unique in the million-man army. Even the Heaven Do Empire Spirit Legion would be suppressed a bit by the Tang army. As long as you mentioned the Tang Sect, mentioned the Tang army, nobody wouldn't give their approval. Even if it was before the battle, the Tang Sect already counted as the number 1 great sect in Heaven Do City. With Imperial support, their position was even above the 7 treasure glazed tile school. And all this was because of Tang San, King Lan Hao, Imperial Tutor, Tang Sect's master. If there initially were some chancellors that objected to Tang Sect receiving so many distinctions, then after the start of this war, everyone were already relieved. Tang San had returned moments before today's battle began, and he had already become a god. A god. as rank 80-something spirit dueler level powers. Titan and the others of course knew the theory of rank 100 becoming gods, but this theory to their minds was like a legend. Tang San had turned this legend to reality, even back when the 4 single attribute clans followed the Clear Sky School. Even if the Clear Sky School was recognized as the world's #1 sect, they still had no god-level power. Now these Tang sect elders and hall masters could raise their eyebrows and exhale. Titan and Nui Gao's excitement also stemmed from this. Altogether 300 disciples of the 2 halls. Defense hall disciples in front, strength hall disciples in the back. Titan and Nui Gao had the best relationship, to the point the strength hall and defense hall disciples also cooperated best. They didn't just simply advance, even though they only had 300 people. Their appearance shook both armies. 150 defense hall disciples, each had already expanded from releasing their spirits. The plate-armored giant rhino's defensive power was completely displayed. At the same time, each hand held a 5-meter tall and 2 meters wide, fully 1 meter thick giant tower shield. Even if these shields were all forged by the disciples of the strength hall using special alloys and weren't all that heavy for their extraordinary defensive strength, it still weighed several thousand jin. When each person held 2 such tower shields, they were like a mobile rampart. The defense hall disciples were tall themselves, and with these things included, 150 people, 300 tower shields, formed the most solid defensive line possible. In fact, each of these astoundingly heavy shields would need at least 10 of the most elite heavy infantry to move. Without a doubt, with these special tower shields from the strength hall, the defense hall disciples' defensive power had reached an unprecedented level. Even for high-level spirit masters, breaking their defense still definitely wouldn't be easy. As for bow and arrow, heavy crossbows and such attacks could basically be ignored. Even more valiant were still those behind. Even though the defense hall disciples had great strength, they focused their strength on defense. The true force came after. 150 strength hall disciples, divided into 4 units of more than 40 men. They weren't noticeable before moving out of the army formation, but now that they did, with a simultaneous roar, each unit of more than 40 men simultaneously used force, and giant battering rams appeared. Under ordinary circumstances, siege hammers would be carried by special vehicles, but these were brought out entirely with human strength. Only, as long as these siege weapons were closely observed, it would be obvious why they had to be wielded by people, and moreover carried by more than 40 strength hall disciples. These battering rams were made from 1,000-year iron wood, covered by a layer of iron plating, and the front third was completely made from iron essence. The entire battering ram was 100 meters long, more than 5 meters in diameter. Was Tang San's sea god trident heavy? Each of these battering rams weighed the equivalent of 5 sea god tridents, reaching a full 500,000 jin. Even in the Spirit Master world, maybe the Strength Clan was the only group that could use such terrifying battering rams by cultivating purely strength. What siege vehicle could carry such weight? These 4 battering rams still weren't fully completed when the Heaven Do army first set out, and had only been brought half a month ago. It had to be carried onto the battlefield by the Strength Hall disciples themselves. Otherwise, if it was left to ordinary soldiers, there was no telling how many men it would take to move these 4 big fellows. As the 4 battering rams were shouldered by the Strength Hall disciples, formally appearing on the battlefield, the defending Spirit Empire Spirit Masters on top of the walls were stupefied. These things, were they movable with human strength? The Strength Hall disciples used facts to prove that these really were true battering rams. The Defense Hall disciples quickly spread out, separating to the sides of the Strength Hall disciples, raising the tower shields above their heads. They sheltered the Strength Hall disciples completely within. As for the parts of the battering rams that stuck out, they basically needed no protection. If you have the skill, come break them. Even though these things weren't made from the best materials, was that 500,000 jin weight so easy to destroy? In fact, ironwood itself not only didn't weigh less than steel, it was even more solid. If not for the Heaven Do Empire possessing a province that produced such ironwood, even with the full backing of the Heaven Do Empire, the Tang sect still wouldn't have been able to create these things. For these 4 battering rams, the Heaven Do Empire had summoned 10,000 blacksmiths under the Strength Hall's command. These things were to be heavy and strong. There was no need for details. Ordinary blacksmiths were enough. With the tower shields held high, these 300 people immediately split into 4 units, stepping onto the sand filling the moat, swiftly charging towards Jolin Pass. Meanwhile, the Tang army as well as the Heaven Do Spirit Master Legion also moved simultaneously, launching a tidal wave of attacks at the top of the walls. They were clearly screening the attack on the walls by those 300 Tang sect disciples. Of course, the Heaven Do army's attack didn't just consist of this. Among the infantry, a full 6 archery legions moved up to the moat under protection of the heavy infantry, drawing bows and knocking arrows. Besides the powers of both sides just now fighting fiercely on top of the walls, 60,000 arrows began to indiscriminately blanket the top of Jolin Pass as well as the inside of the walls. Even back when Tang San attacked Bibi Dong, the Heaven Do army still didn't act so fiercely. Shui Beng didn't know if Tang San would return for today's battle. Therefore, he had brought out all the trump cards of the Heaven Do Empire. 1,000,000 troops. How would they be so easily resisted? The Heaven Do Empire had existed on the Dulo continent for many years, and their resources were extremely deep. How could a recently founded nation like the Spirit Empire compare to this? In the past, the Heaven Do Empire had given all the kingdoms and duchies free reign mainly to give Spirit Hall face. That's why they didn't deal with them until this moment, when the Colossal Empire revealed their robust strength. The battle was practically ignited at this moment. The entire battlefield fiery. Countless arrows fell from the sky. To Spirit Masters, 1 arrow of course wasn't anything, but they couldn't withstand the constant indiscriminate rain. Harming them was very difficult, but it was enough to disturb them. Moreover, even more arrows rained down inside the walls, and the unprepared Spirit Empire soldiers were immediately hit, large numbers of soldiers falling like scythed wheat. By the time they had tidied up their formations to deal with the rain of arrows, there were already several thousand casualties. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.